Welcome to Journey Church, everyone. Hopefully you're having a good morning. Yes, there we go, amazing. I feel like I have to do that every time I get up here. Listen, I've been preaching at camps the last few weeks, and the students there, they are always talking. They're literally talking the entire message. So I need some energy from you, okay? I need some energy from you. Man, we're continuing this morning. My name's Harman. I'm one of the pastors here. We're glad you're here. If you're new here, we're glad you're here. If you're watching online, thanks for being here this morning. It's a good morning to be in church. We're in our series called Better. Turn to your neighbor and say better. So listen, I'm using some engagement tricks that I use with the youth. It's great. Turn to your other neighbor and say even better. Even better. Man, we're in our series called Better, and it walks through one of the most fascinating letters in the New Testament, the book of Hebrews. And the book of Hebrews is all about tying everything together. From the Old Testament to the New Testament, there's Jewish believers in the early church about 2,000 years ago. And before they had a hard copy of this book, they were sharing the stories of God and what God had done. They had the Old Testament, but they didn't have individual copies, right? They learned as a community. And Hebrews is all about foundational stories. You know, sometimes people wonder and ask me often when I preach, why do I share so many stories from my childhood? And it's because those are foundational stories to me, right? Also, I'm not that old yet, so I only got stories from my childhood, right? One story I remember, I'm the oldest of 3 kids. I've got a younger sister who's about a year younger than me, and life was good, you know? It was me and her, and it was peaceful, you know? And then my parents decided to do something. They decided to have a 3rd child. I don't know why. It didn't make sense to me. I thought we were good, family of 4, right? Everything comes in 4s, right? You want to buy passes to the theme park. They got a deal for people who've got 4, but for 5, you got to pay a little extra, right? It's just like, Mom, Dad, we were so good. But no, I was excited to have a younger brother, right? My younger brother came 7 years later. I was so excited that on his 1st birthday, I wanted to throw him a birthday party because I was like, listen, he's my younger brother. I love him. My mom tells me that I should love him. And so I was like, I'm gonna throw him a birthday party. And I said, Mom, can we throw him a birthday party? She said, yeah, we'll throw him a birthday party. His birthday's tomorrow. And I'm sure she probably said something along the lines of, we'll do it this weekend. But all I heard was, we're throwing a birthday party. So, it's the summertime, and all my friends in the neighborhood, listen, I was a popular kid. I knew everybody in the neighborhood, okay? And the neighborhood beside that neighborhood. I just rode my bike around. I would find people. We would hang out. I was the youngest in most of the friend groups I was in. So I was the 7-year-old hanging out with 15-year-olds, okay? And doing dumb things, right? They would tell me, hey, go play with a lighter, or, go try to, just do dumb things. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll do that, right? And we all had these BMX bikes, and we used to ride around as a gang in the neighborhood. Anyways, so Mom says, yeah, we're gonna throw him a birthday party, and that's all I needed to hear. So I'm going out the next day. I'm telling all my friends, hey, tomorrow at 2 o'clock, why don't you come over to the house? And I invite everybody, everyone that moves in the neighborhood, I'm inviting over to our home for a birthday party. The only problem was I didn't tell my parents, okay? And so 3 o'clock rolls around, my mom's getting back from work, I'm staying with my grandma, and my mom, she tells me the story. She goes, I started to freak out. I thought someone was having a garage sale on our lawn because there were so many bikes that were lined up from all the neighborhood kids. She's going, what's going on? We're like, is there an accident? Did something happen? So she drives up, and there's me and about 30 other people sitting on the lawn waiting for my mom. And she goes, what are you doing? I said, you said there was gonna be a birthday party. I invited everybody. What do you mean? And my mom, I'm sure she was angry. I would be angry thinking now that I have a 7-year-old. If he did that, that would be crazy. That would be crazy. And she went out, she got a cake, she left us with the neighbors. My dad got home and we celebrated together. We had cake for everybody, and we had an impromptu, listen, I'm just efficient, right? I wanna get things done, all right? I'm a man of action, all right? Even at 7 years old, I wanted to get things done. But the truth is that that's a foundational story for me, right? That moment, remembering those things. And what I loved about my parents' response was they were never angry. They just loved it. They just rolled with it. They accepted it, There was almost like an authority just as a son that I had, just like, hey, we're doing this. And it was like, yeah, we're doing this as a family, They never once said, you did the wrong thing. They just were like, I wish you would have given me a heads up. Wish you would have given me a heads up. And see, Hebrews is written to a group of Jewish Christians who were going through it, right, 2,000 years ago. They had said yes to Jesus, but it was costing them. Their families did not understand why they were trying to follow Jesus. Their communities pushed them out. They were losing relationships, standing, belonging, all of that for the name of Jesus. So this letter is written to people standing at a crossroads. And honestly, they're tempted to walk away. The writer makes one argument in this book over and over and over again about 100 different angles. And the whole argument fits into one word: better. Better. He keeps saying this. I know it's costing you. I know it's hard. But do not go back. Don't go back. Because what you have in Jesus is better. Better than the angels, better than Moses, better than the priests, better than the sacrifices, better than the whole system that you had believed in. When you're tempted to run back, do not trade better for familiar. For honest, it's one of the most easy things to do as a human, to trade better for familiar. Familiar is comfortable. Familiar does not ask anything new of us. So even when familiar is the thing that is quietly worse for us, we choose it. We stay in a pattern, the habit, the old way of doing things, not because it's good, but because it's what's known. It's what we know, right? And today in chapter 3, the writer does something bold. He takes on the single greatest hero the Jewish people ever had. He goes right after Moses, and he says, even Moses, as great as he was, Jesus is better. But here's the thing, before we can feel the weight of what those words mean, we're not in a Jewish community here. Some of us didn't maybe even grow up in church, and you might not even know what the name of Moses actually means. We don't have that foundational story like many others do. So when I say Moses, I mean the real one, okay? Because the people reading this letter, Moses was not just a character in a story. Moses was everything, okay? Moses is like the Michael Jordan of the Old Testament. Okay, he's the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Moses. Now listen, I know when I say GOAT, okay, half of you want to fight me on that, okay? LeBron, Kobe, right? Michael Jordan, who's better? Listen, I know we're talking about FIFA, Ronaldo, Messi. I'm a Ronaldo fan. I gotta cheer against Argentina. I'm so sorry, okay? Some of you will never talk to me again. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's okay. I'll feel better when we win. That's Spain. No, I'm just kidding. We're probably gonna lose, it's okay. But there's these GOATs in history, right? Tom Brady, what a GOAT, right? Just ultimate winners, right? And for me, in basketball, that's my sport, that's the sport I love, right? These are some of the people that are the GOATs, right? The greatest of all time. LeBron James, most points. He's like 42 years old, about to play another season. We're all waiting. Where's he gonna go? I'm excited. I've just been waiting, okay? Like FIFA highlights have been great, but I'm just glued to Twitter for the update. Where's LeBron James going? It's gonna change the league. Even at the age 42, that's all we're talking about. Where's LeBron James gonna go this offseason? Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest to ever touch the ball. Michael Jordan, but listen, those are good GOATs, okay? It sounds weird to call them GOATs because all I picture is anyways. They're good GOATs. They're the greatest of all time. But for me, there's one that's even greater than all of these three. It's not Jesus, it's not Moses, it's Steph Curry, okay? Come on, Stephen Curry, okay? The man on a mission, he's a man of God, okay? Raised in the church, he's a believer. All right, all his shoes, they have the I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me verse. He's a Christian, I'm with him. He's the GOAT, right? Greatest shooter of all time. Anyways, I know some of you guys are offended already. Again, I apologize. But when you get to the Old Testament, okay, there is no bigger human than Moses. So let me walk you through his life a little bit because it honestly is like a movie. There's actually a lot of movies made after his story. It starts with a baby who should not be alive. Pharaoh has ordered every Hebrew baby boy to be thrown into the Nile River. And this is a mother who hides her son as long as she can. And then she does the unthinkable. She puts him in a basket and lets him float down the Nile River. He was supposed to be dead. They were supposed to kill him. And the basket floats right up to Pharaoh's daughter, the princess of Egypt. She pulls him out of the water. She raises him as her own. And then catch this, a Hebrew slave baby grows up as the prince of Egypt. That's the movie title if you want to go watch it. It's really good. Palaces, servants, the best of everything. Moses always knows that he does not belong, not fully. And one day he sees an Egyptian beating a Hebrew slave, one of his own people, and something snaps in him. He kills that Egyptian. That's the one thing I love about the Bible. It doesn't hide humanity, right? Most stories would keep this person as just a hero, the ultimate hero. But the Bible also shows us their humanity. He killed somebody. And so he becomes a fugitive. This prince turns into fugitive. He runs into the desert, and the man who had everything spends the next 40 years as a nobody, shepherding sheep in the middle of nowhere. 40 years from prince to shepherd, overlooked, forgotten. God has a habit of doing his best work in the desert. That's what I found. And then on an ordinary day, there's this bush that catches fire. It doesn't burn up. Moses walks over to look at it. God speaks out of the flames. Take off your sandals. This is holy ground. God tells him, I'm sending you back to Egypt to set my people free. And Moses, 80 years old now, basically says, you got the wrong guy. It's not me. And God says, I will be with you. And he gives them himself a name. I am who I am. So the shepherd walks back into the very throne room that he ran from, and he stands in front of the most powerful man on the planet. And he says 4 words that shake history. Let my people go. Let my people go. Pharaoh says no. And what follows is one of the greatest showdowns in the whole Bible. 10 plagues. Water turns to blood, frogs everywhere, locusts, darkness that you can actually feel. And finally, a night so heavy that Egypt breaks and lets them walk. And then the moment that everybody knows, okay, you've seen this, you've heard of this, they're trapped. The Red Sea is in front of them. Pharaoh's entire army thundering up behind them. Moses lifts his staff. He splits the sea in two. A nation of former slaves walks through on dry ground. Walls of water standing. I wonder if there's a goldfish they could see on both sides. And that's the scene. And it keeps going. Moses climbs up a mountain, disappears into a cloud of God's presence, comes back down carrying the 10 commandments, the law, written by the finger of God. His face is literally glowing because he has been so close to God. He leads this nation for 40 years through the wilderness. He builds a tabernacle. Listen, if you're getting bored, it's just getting good. The place where the presence of God comes to live. He's the one man in scripture where it says that God spoke to face, like a person speaks to a friend. There has never been anybody like him. The deliverer, the lawgiver, the prophet, the goat, Moses. And then here's the ache of the whole story. After all that, the plagues, the sea, the mountain, the law, the 40 years of leading, Moses climbs one last mountain, Mount Nebo. And God lets him see the promised land. The thing he spent his entire life walking towards. He can see it with his own eyes. And then Moses dies. Right there. He's outside the promised land. He never got to step in. Hold on to that for a second. We're going to come back to it. But do you feel that? This is the man, the greatest leader Israel has ever had. And the writer of Hebrews in the New Testament is about to walk into a room. He's about to point at Jesus. And he's about to say something that would have stopped every single Jewish reader's heart. So now, let's read what he said. Therefore, holy brothers and sisters, Hebrews 3, 1-6, who share in a heavenly calling, fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. He was faithful to the one who appointed him, just as Moses was faithful in all of God's house. Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses, just as the builder of a house has great honor, or greater honor than the house itself. For every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. Moses was faithful as a servant in God's house, bearing witness to what would have been spoken by God in the future. But Christ, but Christ is faithful as the son over God's house. And we are his house, if indeed we hold firmly to our confidence and hope in which we glory. Did you catch that? What just happened there? The writer takes Moses, the goat, the greatest hero they have, and he says Jesus is worthy of greater honor than him. For the Jewish audience, that is the most scandalous thing that you could have possibly said. That's like walking into a room full of Argentinian fans telling them they're gonna lose. Right? Scandalous. Announcing that somebody is greater. Somebody is greater. And so everyone leans in. Okay, you've made your claim, now prove the point. And remember, these are the people we just talked about, the ones who are tempted to trade something better for something familiar, ready to quietly slide Jesus down until he's just one more good teacher on a shelf sitting right next to Moses. And honestly, that still happens today. And you look around the world today and you will find 100 different takes on Jesus. Jesus the good teacher, Jesus the nice guy who wanted everyone to be kind, Jesus the life coach who wants you to manifest your best life. Everybody has got a version of Jesus that is convenient, sized to fit their life. And into all that noise, Hebrews 3 is shouting, and it says something crystal clear. He is not just a better Moses. He is the Son. And here is the whole sermon today. Listen, if you're falling asleep a little bit, I'm gonna give you the 3 words right here, right? This is the entire lesson in one moment, so stay with me. In, over, into. In, over, into. Moses was faithful in the house. Jesus is faithful over the house. And the Son brings you into the house. That's where we're going today. And so what I love about this passage is that it describes Jesus right off the top as apostle and high priest. The apostle is the sent one, right? With some good news. And this is the language that Jewish people would understand. They call him the high priest. See, the high priest would be the person who would atone for you in front of God. When you had messed up, they're like the get out of free jail card a little bit, right? You just bring them a lamb, they'll sacrifice it, and you can go on your way. Whew, I'm good for another year. But this high priest, Jesus, he's different. He comes in the flesh, human. And this high priest makes sure that the good news he's talking about will actually be good news to us. That we will actually be able to receive that good news, that it's actually for us. So go to the text with me for just a moment. The writer Moses was faithful, verse 5, faithful as a servant in all of God's house. And I want you to hear this clearly. Hebrews is not trashing Moses. This isn't a diss track, okay? After everything we've just walked through, of course not. Moses was genuinely, beautifully faithful. He was a good and trusted servant of God's house. But there's a thing about a servant, even a great one. A servant works in a house that is not theirs. However trusted you are, however many keys you carry, however long you've worked there, at the end of the day, you are a staff. You clock in, you clock out. The house is not yours, you serve it. And we're called to serve well, but you don't own it. You don't own it. You know, when I was 13 and went on a trip to India, I've told many stories about my time in India, and I remember there was one week where my parents were tired of me, too many birthday parties, and they said, you're gonna go work with your uncle on the farm. And I said, okay, listen, I've never grown up as a farm, and I want you to just catch a little bit of the heart of this. Our entire family were farmers up until me, okay? It explains a lot. Okay, they're like, yeah, this kid didn't work. This kid wasn't working much when he was a kid. No, like they worked with their hands. I was like learning how to like milk cows, and we had a goat, okay? So like cows, you can only milk at a certain time. If you're a farmer, you know this, right? But goats, you can kind of milk anytime. So when you need to make chai in the middle of the day because someone's throwing a random birthday party, right? You can go to the goat milk and make some chai. Anyways, my dad was telling me this like last week. He's like, this is why we kept a goat. And I'm like, Dad, I haven't even seen a goat in like 20 years. Anyways. And so we're farmers. So they sent me to my uncle. He's got this farm out there, and they've planted potatoes. Okay, this is the first time I learned potatoes come from the ground. I thought they came from the supermarket, right? From the grocery store, superstore. No, they don't come bagged. You gotta bag them. So we're in the field, and my uncle, he wakes me up early, 6 a.m., and he says, hey, I'm gonna go to town. I'm gonna go get the workers, but you're gonna stay here, and I'm gonna explain to you what we're gonna do, because when they show up, some of them, this will be the first time they've ever worked on the farm. It's also my first time I've ever worked on a farm. And he says, I'm gonna show you how to do every part. So if anyone has any questions, you'll be there ready to tell them how to do it. So he's like, this is how you pick it out, right? This is how you pull it out. You clean it off, right? This is how you bag it. Once the bag is full, you take the bag, you put it on the trailer, right? Once it's on the trailer, we hook up 2 bulls to the front, and then we are on our way to town, right? Like, this is like old school, right? We don't got no tractors, okay? This is like old school farming. And so he shows me how to do all of this. I'm 13 years old. He goes into town. He picks up some people to work. You know, at the time, I thought these people were just paid workers, right? We're just grabbing some workers. You know, later on, I would learn that these are closer to slaves than they are workers. I didn't know that at 13, but looking back, I realized that day, many of them would have seen me as a slave master more than a helping hand. And so he brings the people back into the farm, and we're picking, and I'm telling these men, there's probably 40, 50-year-olds, and I'm going, hey, make sure that goes from here to here. Can you just imagine just like how big my head was? Oh, it was horrible. These guys are like, this 13-year-old's telling me what to do? What are we doing here? And I'm telling them, move it here, move it here, move it there. And see, there's something different about a servant and a son. See, the son has an authority in the house that a servant doesn't have. We don't get this in our Western culture, right? We don't have servants here, really. But in other parts of the world, they have servants. And see, a servant can't just do anything. They need the permission of the house owner to be able to make any decision, to be able to do anything. But a son can walk into a home and has an authority in a home that no servant ever will. They can walk into the fridge. They can open that thing up. They can take the food they want. To be a son in that culture, you got an ultimate authority. And see, this is the real difference that we're circling around. A servant's authority is real, but it's borrowed. It's a loan. It has hours. A son's authority is different. Not because the son is louder or works harder, because I didn't, but because the son belongs. The son can walk into any room of that house and say the word no to a servant, and they have to listen. And so the son is faithful over the house. Now look at the text. It lifts Jesus, verse 3. Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses. Just as the builder of a house has great honor than the house itself, has greater honor than the house itself. Moses is in the house, but Jesus, he built the house. Moses is in a room in the mansion. Jesus is the architect of the whole thing. This is not Jesus being just slightly better than Moses. This isn't just an upgrade on the same product. It's not an iPhone 10 and then you got an iPhone 15. Jesus is the son over the house, different in kind, not just degree. So I should stop here and just say something for a second, because I think a lot of us have quietly shrunk Jesus. Right? We have a Sunday school Jesus sometimes, one that we learned about as a kid. Soft, blonde hair, blue eyes, nice hair. Holding a lamb, gazing gently into the distance, meek and mild. And listen, Jesus is gentle. Don't get me wrong here. And that is true. It's precious. But that's not the whole picture. And if that's the only Jesus you know, you're not gonna be able to trust him. You're not gonna be able to trust him with the heavy stuff. Because that same Jesus is the Jesus that John sees in Revelation 1, has eyes like a blazing fire, and a voice that sounds like rushing water, and a face that shines like the sun shining in all its brilliance. And John, his friend, falls down like a dead man. The same Jesus in Colossians 1 says, all things were created through him and for him, and in him all things hold together. And this Jesus is not just meek and mild as a man. He is a majestic Messiah. He is greater than all. And so verse 1 says to fix your thoughts on Jesus. It's not that small, soft Jesus on the cross. No. It is the Jesus on the throne, the thunderous voice, all authority and power in heaven. And here's the beautiful part. This is where this just becomes Good news for somebody, but more than that, it becomes good news for us. The Son actually does with all of his authority. In verse 6, he says, we are his house. Think about that for a second. A servant serves the house. The Son owns the house. But this Son takes his authority and he does the most unexpected thing with us. He goes outside, he finds the servants, he finds the slaves, he finds the outsiders, people who are far from the Father, and he brings them in, not as staff, but as family. Family. He looks at people who've only ever been hired help, and he says, from now on, you are a son and you are a daughter. It changes our whole reality. Our whole reality. John 1:12 says this, yet to all who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. All of us have that opportunity. Doesn't matter what cards we've been dealt in life. Doesn't matter how you grew up, what faith background you're in. You all have to become children of God. We have to do it. Galatians 4:7 says this, so you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has made you also an heir. Man, I could sit on that for the next 2 weeks. We are heirs. So this is the whole gospel in one move. You don't have to work your way from servant to child to son to daughter. The Son comes and he gets you and he carries you in. And some of us have been living our whole Christian life like hired help. Nervous, trying to earn a spot, waiting to get fired, working like a servant when God's calling you a son and daughter. A son and a daughter. That's what he sees over you. That's who you are to him, a son and a daughter. There's one more detail that's buried in this text. Listen, I know we're seeing this from the viewpoint of the Jewish people, right? And Moses, he ends up outside the promised land. But in the middle of this story, Moses, he could lead them to the edge of the Jordan River, all the way to the border, but he couldn't take them across. The man who carried the law could get you right up to the line, and then he had to stop. So who finally leads them through the water and into the land? It's a man named Joshua. Joshua. That's why there's so many people named Josh. We got a lot of them around here. Because it's a good name. It's a good name. Here's what I don't want you to miss. Joshua in the Hebrew is Yehoshua. It means the Lord saves. And when you carry that same name down through the centuries into the New Testament, into the Greek, it becomes Yeshua, Jesus. It's the same name. So do you feel the picture that God is painting? Moses, the servant, the law, can get you to the edge, but he can't take you into the promised land. But then a Joshua rises up, a Jesus rises up to actually bring you in. And this is where Moses gets his ending. So let's go back to Moses for just one more moment. The next part of the story is my favorite part of the story. Because I love the Bible. I love this book so much. And I can't believe how it all fits together telling this story. Listen, you go all the way back to the garden, and what do you actually see? What do we actually lose in the garden? If you've grown up in church, Adam and Eve, it's the story, they eat the apple, sin enters the world. Humanity lost the face of the Father. That's the wound underneath everything. Now fast forward to Moses. The Bible says Moses is one man God spoke with face to face, as one speaks with a friend. The closest anybody has ever gotten since the garden. But even that language has a limit, because Moses has this moment in Exodus 33 where he's right there with God. And he just blurts out the boldest prayer a person could pray. And in front of God's presence, Moses says this, now show me your glory. Does anyone remember what God says back? He basically says, Moses, I love you. And there's so much I will do for you. I will make all my goodness pass in front of you. But there's one thing I cannot give you. You may not see my face. Because no one can see my face and live. And then comes one of the most tender scenes in the entire Old Testament. God takes Moses and he places him in the cleft of the rock. He covers Moses with his own hand. And the text says that God causes his back to pass by while Moses is hidden. Instead of showing Moses his face, God declares his glory out loud. The Lord, the compassionate, gracious God. Moses gets the goodness. Moses gets the voice. Moses gets the back, but he does not get the face. Even the friend of God could not have that thing that the garden lost. So as far as I can tell you, Moses only had 2 requests in his whole life that God turns down. Request 1, show me your glory. God says no. Let me see your face. No, I cannot do that. No one can see my face and live. And request number 2, at the end of his life, he prays out loud in Deuteronomy, let me go over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, that fine hill, the country in Lebanon. Let me enter the promised land, God. And so God says, because of your disobedience, you cannot. Just get into Moses' story for a second. He's led these people, these slaves that he was born to, his mom. He rises up in the palace, gets all the power, and he can't do anything with it. Finally, he gets his people out across the Red Sea. And the moment they're at the promise, God says no. I don't know if it's just because I'm a pastor and I walk with people. But could you imagine all your friends? They're going to the birthday party and you got to be back here. You can't go in. And you got to watch all your people cross over and you're alone. How painful that would have been for Moses. Just let me enter, God. He dies. He never enters the promised land. Except Jesus. This is how I've read the Bible for years. I've been 15 years I've been a Christian, I think. And I've read this story probably 100 times. And this year, about 7 months ago, I read this passage and it just caught me like a punch to the gut. There's a story. If you fast forward about 1,400 years, Matthew 17, this is when Jesus is on the earth. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up a high mountain, a mountain inside the promised land. And Jesus is transfigured there in front of them. His face shines like the sun. His clothes become white as light. The glory of God comes pouring out of him. And suddenly 2 men appear, standing there, talking with Jesus. One of them is Moses. Moses standing inside the promised land, looking directly into the face of God. The face that he was hidden from in the cleft of the rock is now shining like the sun right in front of him. And what's he doing? He's talking with him as one speaks to a friend. So do you realize just what happened there? This moment, the transfiguration of Jesus. For a lot of us, the meaning behind that is the law and the prophets. And it's really just saying Jesus is above. And it's helping those Jewish believers realize, hey, Moses, Elijah, no. Look who's glowing, Jesus. But hidden in all those details is this tiny dream that Moses had 1,400 years earlier to see the promised land, to see the face of God. And in this moment, doesn't mention it anywhere, but this would have been the first time Moses would have ever stepped foot in the promised land. And he's standing next to a transfigured Jesus in God's glory. Listen, there are dreams that God had placed in your life that you've forgotten about. There are things that you think ended, and that was the end of the story. But can I tell you, the infinite God, even in this moment, hundreds of years later, everything is fulfilled. Everything is fulfilled. Moses gets to step into that land and see his people. Both those prayers got answered. I don't know why I never noticed it before. You know, for a season, Peter the disciple went back to fishing, convinced he had failed Jesus for good. The next season, he was preaching to thousands, and 3,000 people gave their life to God in a day. For a season, Paul sat in a prison for following God. The next season, he's writing letters from a cell that were shaping the entire early church, and to this day, we're reading. For a season, Lazarus was buried behind a stone, dead, wrapped up, finished. And the next moment, Jesus stood outside the tomb and called him back to life. See, God is able to turn around the very thing that you felt was final. And so if this season feels heavy, don't assume God is finished yet. You might be reading Deuteronomy 34. When Matthew 17 is still on the way. That's the whole reason of the book of Hebrews. The whole reason that we're in this series. To show you that Jesus is better. And that better is not just something that happened back then. It's being offered to you today. Man, what are the things that you've let die? Those dreams that you thought, maybe it wasn't for me. Maybe God just missed that prayer. He never answered it. Don't miss it today. Don't miss it today. Because right now, Jesus the Son, he's waiting there at the door. Hebrews 3:7-8 says this, though. So as the Holy Spirit says today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. A few verses later in verse 15, he says it again. Same words, don't harden your hearts. He says it a third time in chapter 4. Don't harden your heart. When the Bible repeats something that often, you got to underline it. 3 times. God is grabbing us by the collar. Pay attention to this one. So why do we keep hammering this home? Because he just spent this whole chapter talking about the promised land. This painful piece, Moses dying outside the promised land. And in Jesus, that's redeemed. But even then, after they crossed the river, man, they still hardened their hearts. They still ran from God. So you can be close enough to the promised land and see it, be in it, and sometimes still miss it. Not because God slammed the door, because your heart got hard right there in the doorway. So the writer grabs us today and he says, man, if you got something stirring right now, there's a nudge, a discomfort, a pull that you've been feeling today. That's the voice. Don't file it away. Don't push it to next week. Don't let your heart get 1 degree harder. The sun is standing at the door, ready to bring you in. We're going to close here in a moment. I just want to bring this to a landing. You know, the reason I keep going back to Moses standing on that mountain, 1,400 years, those 2 prayers that were a no, finally being fulfilled in Jesus. But see, Jesus didn't just fulfill Moses' wishes, his dreams. He fills all of our wishes, all of our dreams. The Bible talks about how those are in our hearts. The things of God that he's placed in our hearts are for his glory. Some of y'all are living in Deuteronomy 34 right now. You got a dream that you were sure was dead. But can I tell you, can I give you a little bit of hope? Our God is a resurrection God. He can bring back to life what you might feel like is over. I just want to ask you a question. What are the dreams that you've let go of, that God has placed in your heart? Because this is what I know about the Son. The Son is greater. Greater than Moses, greater than the law, greater than your worst season. The Son brings servants into the house. He can take a broken dream and breathe life back into it. Maybe you're here for the first time. And maybe this is the first time you're meeting this God. Jesus. Can I tell you, he's so worth it. He's the truest thing that I know. He redeems all things. Every single situation that the enemy meant to give you hell, God can redeem for good. Joseph said it to his brothers who sold him into slavery. What you meant for evil, God meant for good. That's the business the Son is in. He doesn't waste our pain, he redeems it. And so 3 things I just want you to walk out with here. Don't shrink Jesus. This week, fix your thoughts on him, the real him, the majestic one. 2, let's stop living like servants when you've been made to be a son and a daughter. And the 3rd thing is just name one dream that you've buried and bring it back to God this week. Just one. There's been seasons where I've had a dream to see my parents come to know Jesus. Sometimes it's easier to bury that dream. He's calling me back. Hey, why'd you stop praying? Why'd you let your heart get hard? I'm gonna start praying again. Lord, you can save them. I believe. You're a good God. You're making a way. If you're here today and you feel like you've been living like hired help, nervous, striving, waiting for something to give, you need to hear God right now call you a son and daughter. You're wanted in the house. You've got a dream that you thought was dead, and he's a resurrector. He will bring that dream back to life. And so I just want to take a moment here, just every eye closed, every head bowed. Maybe you're here for the first time. And this Jesus, you're hearing about him, and you've never put your trust in him, your faith in him. I tell you, he's good. If you put your trust in him, he is so, so good. And so just right now, I'm just gonna ask on the count of 3 for you to be bold. If that's you, if you'd say, listen, I need to put my trust in Jesus, would you just raise your hand right now? Just keep it up so I can see. Just wanna pray with you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You can put your hands down. Let's pray this prayer. Jesus, I've been on the outside long enough. Thank you that you are greater. Thank you that you came to bring me in. Forgive me, Jesus, for all I've done. Make me new. I give you my life. I'm no longer a slave. I am your child. Would you walk with me from here on out? In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen. Come on, can we celebrate with those who just made a decision? Follow Jesus. Listen, we're celebrating with you. You are not a servant. You are a son and daughter. You've been chosen to walk with God. And so we're going to spend some time just to respond. So if you would stand with me, we can worship. Because this is a real God who is good. He's worthy of our praise. He's worthy of our worship. He's the greatest. And he is better. Let's sing.